All right, welcome everybody. I want to first of all thank you for taking some time out of your Wednesday evening to join us and talk about fun things like real estate. I'm really proud to have a guest speaker with us today, Rod Burriss, who has been a realtor for many years. And I'll just take a moment and just read off Rod's bio. Rod is a native Calgarian who's passionate about connecting with others and strives to provide the best outcome for his clients, both personally and professionally. Rod loves the outdoors, sports, and socializing, essentially any activity that allows him to spend time in people's lives. He is extremely grateful for referrals from his loyal support network, which includes family, friends, sports teams, professional relationships, former employees, and alumni associations. Serving, solving, giving value, and doing life together defines Rod's commitment to others. His strengths are negotiating, mentorship, team building, securing strong client loyalty, marketing, and modeling legendary service. I've known Rod for many years. He's been in the industry since 2007. And Rod, thank you for joining us tonight.
You are very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I guess every day we listen to the news, we read the papers, whether it's online. Everybody's talking about real estate and what they're predicting to happen in the real estate market. If you don't mind, let's start off a little bit and maybe just tell us a little bit about your current perspective on the market, what's happening, some things we should be maybe looking out for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for the invite here. Yeah, the real estate market, there's a lot of noise out there, and it can be a little confusing. And so often people need clarity. And so basically, the right now in the market, we're looking at uh, an ever-changing market. Our market changes all the time, and there's tons of important factors for anyone who has and holds real estate. Um, so, a couple of things before I get into exactly the market update. There's a couple of principles that I use personally when it comes to meeting people and exploring what their needs are. And probably one of the most important things that I like to talk about with people is I call it the DRR. That's discovery, the reality, and the roadmap. So when it comes to do you sell your house, when do you sell your house, all of all of the questions, pricing, everything, and what the market's doing, these are the key things that I think are important. The reason is because in the discovery phase, it's me just going to someone's house, having the conversation, and if it correlates really well with what Tyler, Jennifer, and Jamie do for yourselves already. It's that conversation of what are your needs, the what, why, when, where, and where you're at in your life. So that's super important. Then the reality of navigating, now that we know what maybe your dreams are or your goals, is navigating the timing, understanding the market, whether it's the real estate market or whether it's the financial markets, um, and what things affect that. Because things drop in and drop out of the real estate market every time the Bank of Canada. So October 29th, the Bank of Canada will be having another meeting. Everyone will be wondering, are interest rates going up or down, and how does that affect me? Tariffs, that's new in our market, and that affects things. And then the roadmap is how do we get from A to B? So that's a little bit about how I like to operate, and I'm sure that is very similar to what you're experiencing with Jamie, Tyler, and Jennifer. So when it comes to the market, the underlying fundamentals are ever changing, but they do remain a little bit stable. Our population growth is still continuing. Unemployment numbers do change, but September, and they have been not bad, and being pretty stable. Interest rates fluctuate all the time, but these are all factors that affect real estate. Probably the biggest factor, though, is inventory numbers. So the inventory It is supply and demand. So the inventory numbers in Calgary, single family homes and condos, that number matters. It is so important. I look at it every single day. So today there's 6,130 active listings in Calgary. And that is condos and single family homes. The reason that is so important is because it's supply and demand. So your pricing, the timing of selling your home is super important because of those factors. And right now, the market has slowed from 2021, 22, 23, 24. And from the beginning of 2025, we have started to see a little bit of a, I would say a little bit of a slowdown, but it's not so much a slowdown, it's a shift. So we've been in a seller's market pretty much for 4 years or more. So right now we are just trending to a balanced market into a little bit of a buyer's market, and we're just teetering on that. The monthly supply is now 4 months of days on market, which, in the last couple of years, it would have been more like if a house didn't sell in 2 days for over list with 20 offers, that is what we saw. So just because it's a balanced market or going into a buyer's market a little bit, it does not mean that if you were to sell today, that your house won't sell and you won't get good value, because there's a macro market and there's a micro market. So the macro market is all of Calgary, the big numbers that you see on the headings, and the other ones are for the other ends of Canada, Ontario, British Columbia. Sometimes you see a big heading that says this is happening, and everyone wonders, is the sky falling? We've been very fortunate. Calgary's very affordable, and still it's affordable, and it's been a very strong market. So it's still resilient, and there's different segments of the market also that are key. A community, it matters. Your location matters. And so if you break it down, if you're in Varsity, that's a great area of Calgary. There's not more than 20 houses for sale at any given time. So when a home comes on, it's very sought after. And there's tons of communities all over Calgary, including every single one that you live in, that will have strength to it. And the price range, it does matter, but every price range sells. So basically, the market is shifting, but it is not dropping. We're just seeing a little bit of a market shift. It's also normal in this time of year, especially when you see when you have an election. When it's an election year, people just, they get a little bit stand back just a little bit. There's a little less sense of urgency, but there's still great opportunity for sellers, and I've seen some really good opportunity for buyers. So overall, I think there's lots of factors that affect real estate, but we live in a great city that's very affordable, and it doesn't exactly matter what price range you're in or where you live. You do always have an opportunity in any market.
No, that's perfect. So would you say that we're sort of in more of a balanced market right now that, obviously you said the last 4 years, it's definitely been towards the sellers. Now there's more inventory. Would this be really what you would call sort of a normal market?
Yeah, and I think that's what the confusion is, because um, everyone is hearing about Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal, and how the market is depressed and it's been dropping. Some people have said plummeting. Well, because of their markets were so high, Calgary came up in value, but it never dropped as low and it never came up as high.
Yeah.
So Calgary remained affordable, and the size of our city has been growing leaps and bounds. But yes, we are in a little bit more of we're for sure in a balanced market. and we're just slightly trending to a buyer's market on the fringe. So,
Okay.
um, so that is, for the size of our city, 5 to 6,000 listings in Calgary is considered. I consider that pretty normal for the size of our city. And where we saw the market trends as a seller's market in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been 3,000 listings
Yeah.
day in, day out, month in, month out. So now that we're at 6,000 and just over and kind of jockeying between that number, the feel and perception is that it's too much inventory when really it's just a little bit high. It's not astronomical.
No.
In 2008, we had a market crash with oil, the financial crisis, and interest rates. We had 11,000 listings on the market. So that is three to 4 years of supply. So when you have oil dropping to $35, complete financial crisis, and then you have 11,000 listings, that is a recipe for disaster. So we're not there.
No, not even close. It's
No,
I still have some PTSD over 2008, 2009. It's it was a wild time, and the interesting thing is whether it's real estate or financial markets, you just hang on, and everything recovers, and it did. So a lot of the folks on the webinar tonight, they're in situations where they might start thinking that maybe they're looking at downsizing, or a term that we're using now is maybe right sizing. And I guess when you take a look at what's happening in the Calgary market, what trends are you seeing amongst retirees or empty nesters? Are they downsizing for cost savings, or are they right sizing for lifestyle?
that's a great question. I probably have this conversation 2, 3 times a week with people, which is part of my discovery stage where, yeah, you kind of need to figure out, okay, why do you want to move? Um, and and so I'm seeing both. And the reason I would say both is because it is different. What I find is there's unknown, um, not just in the markets, but um, the cost of living, inflation, and if someone is in a position where, hey, you know what, like we don't have a mortgage anymore, so how can we leverage our money, and what do we do? And what I find some of the fears are, they would be affordability. There's a big fear about affordability. If someone is going to retire, or um, and and lifestyle, people want the same lifestyle, but they know that if they're retiring, they're going to make a little less money. Not always, but the longevity, health, and their wealth. The timing of it is can be stressful, and so that's another reason I have lots of conversation before anything happens. People also might downsize or right size because they want to simplify.
Right.
They their lifestyles change. They might want to just travel. And so they want to go to a lock and leave. They might want to downsize because financially they want some financial freedom. It doesn't have to be season of life. I had a conversation with two people who are 45 years old, and they said we want to downsize. So this is a conversation that isn't just age specific, but health is really important to people, and it's a fear. I hear it every day. Well, I got to buy a bungalow because I can't do stairs anymore, or what if I can't do stairs? So I want to be proactive, but I don't want to give my equity away, and I'm not sure what to do. And life changes. There's marital changes. There's unfortunately there's death, and so there's all of these things are fears, and so that is part of the strategy just on that end of things. So people do downsize and right size for all these reasons, and some of it is for financial reasons to downsize and then actually use that nest egg they have. Because I always tell people equity is not cash. And if you can put your debit card into your garage and get cash out, I want to know your secret. So the only way to get, for a lot of people, they're a big part of their nest egg is they have no mortgage and they've got a fantastic house. They've made great real estate, decisions. But now, how do you use that money and leverage it um, to keep your lifestyle, to keep your affordability, and all of these things? So they're super important questions. Literally, it's almost a daily thing for me to talk about. But right sizing sometimes does mean it's just the size of the house because they want to maintain less and they want to travel. Other people, yeah, they would downsize because they want to financially downsize and simplify at the same time. And then there's a whole bunch of misconceptions with that process. And different people make different decisions because they think, well, Bob across the street, they did this and it must be the right thing to do. I would say it's not a team sport, it's individual, it's your life, it's your wealth, and it's your health. So you have to take care of all those things yourself, which is why you have folks like yourselves who are advocates and experts in the field to help navigate all of those things when it comes to that, because popular trends can sometimes be okay, but it's just not for everybody. So it is it right now, because there's been a bit of uncertainty in our market and in our economy. I would say I have seen more people downsizing and coming up with ways to how can they really dominate and use the funds that they've saved and worked so hard for over the years. And then how do they use that? And
Yeah.
from tax savings and living and everything.
Yeah. No, you bring up a great point, and I'm sure everybody on this call has heard me say in the past, your house is a great investment, but it's not like you can sell off a bedroom to free up some cash. So, I think as we model different retirement plans for people, that's something that we show them is saying, well, what if you were to downsize? Now, I guess if you take a look at some of the folks that you've talked to about downsizing and right sizing, are there some common mistakes that you see people make when they downsize that could be avoided with better planning?
Absolutely. Um, I would say not all the time, but I do see it often where there is usually someone makes a decision a little quicker than they need to, and they haven't done all the research. So, from a tax perspective, from how much do you downsize? Like, what's enough? And is it just the size of the home that matters and less maintenance, etc., or is it more the financial end, or is it a combination? But I'd say the pressure from outside sources I do find is quite common. And sometimes it's family um, talking to, a parent or uncles or aunts or cousins or somebody. And they're saying, you know what, like, you need to do this. Um, Everyone has good intentions, but again, it's still your home, your life, your health, and your wealth. So sometimes, unfortunately, if health changes, then people want to start to make a much quicker decision on how they do that and how their financial outlook looks. Um, but I do find that sometimes there's a little bit of pressure. Sometimes it's important and it's warranted, and sometimes it's not. And so I usually tell people, hey, you know what? Maybe you know you can take a quick breath. And I think before you make any decisions, you need to talk to, your financial planner, your accountant, your a realtor, like people in the field who are objective.
Mm.
Because
Unbiased, yeah.
yeah, because we will see things from a different perspective and maybe be able to give some insight into options that people had no idea because most people just don't, because if you're not in it and you're not seeing the end results easily, or you hear from a neighbor or a friend or a family member, well, you just need to do this. Well, that could put you in a financial difficulty, or it could cause a lot of extra stress, and it could cause a snowball that you can't come back from. So I do see that, but I try to have, and I'm sure it's the same with yourselves, with all my clients. That's why I talk first and say, you know what, we need to exercise this the whole way out. Like, let's look at all the options. And I think those are some of the things that I do find that when we're talking about it, um, that can negatively affect it. And actually, the right sizing and downsizing when it comes to financial, I have many conversations with people because they say, I just want to downsize for the size of the house or the style of the house. Um, but I just need to take like $150,000 off the table, and I'll just buy something just a little less. And then all of a sudden, they actually don't have as much as they thought, or access to. And sometimes you don't have to sell your house. You could leverage
Hmm.
your equity in different ways, but sell your house is the only way to get rid of that. I've had many conversations about, and I probably won't get into this deeply, but reverse mortgages.
Yeah.
I've had 3 conversations in the last 2 weeks about reverse mortgages, and there's a lot of hidden things, in that. So it may work really well for a very specific situation and a person and an individual, but there's a lot of pitfalls and there's a lot of misconceptions, and costs that are affiliated with it. But it does seem like kind of a quick, easy solution
Yeah.
to get some cash quick. But anytime you get cash quick, there's always a flip side to it. Um, so I would say some of the decisions and mistakes, maybe not mistakes, but I guess I'll call them mistakes, that I
Yeah.
see where people make very quick decisions, knee jerk reactions. They don't kind of unfold the entire scenario, and kind of look at everything, before jumping at it, um, which can, well, it's stressful. It adds just an element of stress. So um, that's why I really feel it's just so important to take the time, because you can always sell your house, you can always do this and this and this, but timing matters, and the execution of it matters.
Yeah. No, and I think you brought up some great points there. Sometimes these things are very difficult to unwind. So once you start going down this road, like you said, it's you can't just stop it. So you really have to make sure you're getting into it for the right reasons. Now, something that we're hearing a lot, and I'm not sure about in Calgary, but especially in Vancouver, Toronto, where the markets are pretty inflated from a price perspective, is the whole idea of a generational house, generational
Mm-hmm.
housing. Are you finding is multi-generational living becoming more common in Calgary? And what do you think is driving that shift?
Yeah, it another great question. It it is it is very popular in other cultures, outside of Calgary. However, I have seen the multi-generational shift starting to become a very popular, I can call it a popular trend, but it is happening. And not only is it happening, from a family perspective, mother, father-in-law, suite, daughter, son, um, you know, living together, pooling resources, uh, it is trending, and it's not just becoming popular, it's trending, and the city of Calgary is is taking action with it as well. So bunch of their rezoning options. A lot of the new communities are all R2 zoning or RCG, so that you can have two families, two separate suites, whether it's a rental suite or whether it's one family, both living in the same house. Um, Pooling your resources is becoming a very popular trend, and I'm seeing it a ton. Uh, and Many clients, when I'm looking at homes, they ask me, can I suite the basement in this? Like, I need to add a bedroom because I do lots of renovations and building as well. Clients always ask, how could we change this so we could like either stay in our house, or the new house we're going to look at, we need like this and this and this because my parents can't do stairs. We need them in the house. It's becoming, with the age and demographics of our city, it's becoming very, very popular is not the right word, but it's I'm seeing it a ton. Um, and it some of the fears that I mentioned earlier, affordability, lifestyle, all of these things, people just automatically think, okay, 100%, this is going to solve that.
Yeah.
And I know we're all solvers. Having that multi-generational home, it does solve a bunch of those things. However, there are some issues that arise.
Huh.
One is I have a mother-in-law, um, but people living together, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I mean, I love my family, but I don't know if I want to be this close, like for the next 15 years. Other people think it's amazing. Um, but some of the issues I do find is has less to do with relationship. It has more to do with ownership structure. So sometimes one party out of two, three families, they're the ones on the mortgage. Well, what if someone passes away? What if someone divorces? What if there's a rift in the family? What if this? So all of a sudden, or if all three people go on title because they want equal shares, well, what if one person wants out? What if, so all of a sudden, something that is eliminating fears and unknowns, you've just created some more fears and unknowns because life changes, stuff happens. So I always tell people to seek financial counsel um, and legal counsel. So if you are going to enter into something like this, then the extra strains of other things you need to really be aware before you just jump into it. Because everyone's like, well, it's my family. What could go wrong? And I go, well, I see this every day and it goes wrong. Um,
Absolutely.
so, Seeking legal advice, financial advice on how that decision will impact your finances, your taxes, and you're leveraging your equity. If you've got three people on title, well, even if you have a line of credit that you want to invest with, well, now you have three people that need to make that decision. So there's a lot of positives, but I do also see different situations that arise, and then yeah, there's some hard conversations that have to happen.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think the best advice there, like you said, is getting good legal advice. It's kind of like a prenuptial agreement when you get into a committed long-term relationship. Unfortunately, feelings don't always stay the same, and I think that would be the same in a multi-generational type housing situation. That you want to make sure that if those feelings change, that you've got a plan to unwind that. Now you touched a little bit on renovations, and I guess as you take a look at renovations these days, are there certain renovations that you look at that tend to offer better return on investment in the current market in Calgary?
Hmm. Um, I would say the shift during COVID is where I really saw a change in the attitudes of people. A lot of people who are renting, because in May of 2020, everything, well, in March when COVID hit, and all of us thought we probably weren't going to make it, and our lives changed forever. Every industry, every person in the world. Um, when it comes to that, that was a big game changer for the real estate market because we dropped because no one was listing homes because everyone thought not like our lives were possibly ending. I know it's a bit dramatic, but there was a lot of fear, and so no one wanted to do anything. Well, to put it in perspective, our inventory dropped to 977 listings in Calgary.
Wow,
So
unbelievable.
that is unbelievable. And then when the Bank of Canada realized that nothing was happening, they dropped the rates in May to June to 1.5. Well, that spurred on not only a selling and buying frenzy, a selling frenzy. So all of a sudden, our inventory started to jump, and so a lot of people who were renting at 1.5%, it was the first time because prices had come down because of COVID and the fear of everything. Even though there wasn't a ton to buy, all the first time home buyers and people who were renting, um, they said, "Well, I can't even rent for this, so I'm going to buy." So they all started buying, and those buyers were doing 5% down, and they couldn't afford to do anything else. They just could get into a property, so they needed a property that was like right ready to go. So since then, because the market gained so much speed and steam, people could do renovations of any kind, light lipstick, I'd call it, heavy lipstick, and then full blown renovations. And they were gaining on every single one of those options. Um, Now, in a normal market like right now, kitchens and bathrooms still are probably the most important to people. People spend a ton of time in their kitchen. Um, they might not love their floors. So, you know, I would say that the top, when I renovate a house and someone says, I have this budget, I can only do this much, I would say, depending on the kitchen and the layout and the age of the home and many different things, because that can snowball really quickly. But yeah, kitchens and bathrooms, there's still areas that people spend time in. Kitchens are very important to people. Um, Whether you're a cook or not, it is a space where you live and you spend such a huge amount of time. So, and there's some new methods for renovating. There's new paints that I'm using to spray cabinets out, which I never could have before. And it's less expensive. There's, renovations overall are expensive, but there are some really, there's some small things you can do to refresh your home without spending, you know, $300,000.
Right.
If you want to do some significant work, you can easily spend $300,000. I did 5 renovations this last year, and have 2 on the go with clients, and they ranged from $150,000 up to 600.
Wow.
Um, and some of those were full renovations, clearly, but you don't have to. And so I always go over to people's houses, and they'll say, "Should I renovate? Should I sell? Or should I keep my house? Like, what should I do? And what's going to be my return on investment?" And again, it's so individual because it depends on how long they're going to stay in the house. It depends on what their goals are financially. Do they want to downsize, right size, free up money? Do they want to stay in this house, um, until they're taken out? Like, uh, it's a full spectrum, and so I usually tell people according to the square footage of their house, the community they live in, their price range. There's always a ceiling, and so you can do a custom reno for yourself. But when it comes to return on investment, and I always think about return on investment, there's always a ceiling. You know, if you have a 1,000 square foot bungalow and you put $500,000 into it, you are likely not getting that out.
Yeah.
Um, it might look spectacular in a tiny space, but there's always a ceiling, and so I just tell people, um, to be careful, um, just on how far they go. But definitely kitchens, bathrooms, um, paint. Paint is inexpensive, and you can make feature walls. You can change the whole feel of your house. The light transfer that comes in, like there's a lot of things you can do that are not expensive. And there's a lot of great companies out there that do work. So I don't know if that totally answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Now, I guess flip side. So we're talking about kitchens, bathrooms, paint. Good, probably a good investment. On the flip side, are there any red flag renovations that might actually hurt the resale value? Like I've always heard about swimming pools that that's something that can impact the sale of a house. What are your thoughts on swimming pools or other red flag renovations that people should stay away from?
Yeah, I find usually it's the items that are very specific to the person. Um, I I have people who put very high end appliances, in a $500,000 house. So Sub-Zero appliances are amazing, but if you put a $40,000 fridge in a $500,000 house and you want to get the return on that, you're doing it for yourself, and you better take that baby with you because you're not gonna you're just not gonna get the value out of it.
No.
Um, and appliances are actually one thing, that is a good investment, and they usually it is the one thing that I'll do if it's a really kind of cheap and cheerful update. Appliances, you get a good deal on an appliance package, Black Friday or something, and it will it'll be fantastic. It'll really elevate your kitchen, without spending a ton of money. But usually it is the finishing work. Someone said, "Well, I put the most expensive plumbing that money can buy in this house," and I said, "Oh, that's great. Like, is it behind the walls? Like, is it PAX? Is it gold? Like, what did we put in here?" And so some people will say, "Well, I spent $300,000 and everything is state of the art. I have a LAN system. I have this system. I spent $100,000 on my LAN system." So no offense to everyone who has that, because it's an amazing system, but it's just all relative. Where you might put it in because you're a tech person. You might put in, something else because it's something that you love. But you just might not get your money out of it.
Right.
And it's usually very custom things that someone wants, Um, and I tell people, you can do whatever you want, but if you put gold, solid gold taps in, which one of my clients did, I said, one, I don't even know where you found them. Two, I don't know if they're real, but I'm not going to doubt it. But the amount of money that they spent, um, you know, that is then all of a sudden you've crossed a threshold. Um, one of my clients put in carpet. It was $80,000 for the
Yeah.
carpet. Well, that is really nice carpet.
Yeah.
I like the average person walking in will go, actually, I just want a carpet. So I always tell people, your house, you can do what you want. But here's what you can expect on resale down the road. It's always a really good idea to have conversation before you jump into it.
Yeah. No, great point. Because again, something that appeals to you might not appeal to everybody else, and it's even technology, like when you're talking about the Elan home automation system and home entertainment, it that stuff outdates so quickly, and the pace of technology these days, you know, it it's within 5-10 years, it's antiquated. So again, you spend all this money, but you're not getting anything back out of it. So.
Mm-hmm.
But we're at about 15 minutes to 8. What I'd like to do is I always like to open this up to some questions from the group. So I know Jennifer, she put a post there just down in the chat. If anybody has any questions, by all means, please raise your hand, take yourself off mute, and let's ask the expert while we've got Rod on the call here.
I'll
Okay,
chime
well,
in with one.
yeah, sure, Tyler. Thank you.
So you hear a lot of it if you watch any of the design or home sale shows on TV, they talk about staging.
I
So
was gonna stole my
how important is staging and does it really make a difference?
Um, Very, very good question. I will answer that super carefully. Um, because I know a lot of stagers. I work with designers. I work with new home sales, do renovations. Staging your home, there's a difference between staging your home and having your home set up the way that it's actually going to flow. So sometimes I would say the misconceptions or the drawbacks from staging is that if someone is going to, well, two things. It's very expensive to do staging.
Okay.
So people are very, very sensitive to costs and what is the return on investment if they were paying $5,000 a month for new furniture coming to their house. So I always preface that with, if the furniture doesn't match that this home stager brings in because it's all contemporary, um, is your home going to still look fantastic? Is your furniture horrible? Um, Typically, people decorate their homes according to their style and the style of their house. So I go into the home and I would say, you know what? I'm going to help you move your furniture. So basically, before I take pictures of a house, I will go in with the seller and say, listen, you know, if we need to tweak something, I'm I'm just going to tell you that we need to open up the space in front of this window. We need to make a different corridor so that people can flow through the house. If you've got big mountain views, you want to accentuate all of those um, big ticket items. So you want to be able to have the big picture window wide open. You want your blinds wide open. Um, and typically, I would say out of all the years I've been selling, even with builders and their new homes, I would say probably been a handful of homes that I've staged or suggested.
Mm,
The only time that I find staging a home is really important is if there's a functional space that doesn't make sense. So sometimes builders will build a home with a 12-foot hallway.
mhm,
Well, it's a 5,000 square foot house. So people go, well, it's just like, I don't know, what do you do with this? That is the point. You don't want a buyer walking into your house and going, I don't know like, what do you do in this? Like, what is this area? Um, so at that point, I would say, you know what? We're going to pick up your couch and we're going to make, or two chairs and a little bistro table or something, or a little coffee table. And we're going to use your furniture, but we're going to like recreate the space so that when people come in, they go, oh, okay, yeah, this would be like a nice sitting room. This is a library. This is a loft, but it could be an office. Or maybe if it's a 4-bedroom house, and a big family is going to buy it, okay, that's a play space. So I always look at what the home is and how would 80% of the people use this house? Because that that is really the key. And then it's decluttering. Decluttering, I don't need to pay someone or my clients pay $3,000 to $5,000 to have either stuff brought in or and that's just my opinion. I sell tons of vacant homes with no furniture all the time. And so, if someone is in a position where, yeah, they've been in their house 40 years and they're like, well, but it looks like I've been here for 40 years. Yeah, that's okay because your house probably feels a little bit older anyway. And you probably didn't put a brand new kitchen in that's like ultra modern and contemporary because it wouldn't match with your house. So I say that carefully because staging your house does matter, but hiring someone who you have to pay to do it and get new furniture in, I don't know if I see enough value in it. And I don't think it makes a big enough difference. If your house is super cluttered and super jammed, I'm going to come in and say, you know what, we need to clear all this out. So this all needs to get boxed up, taken out. So
mm.
those are my thoughts on it.
Sounds good. Great answer and great question, Tyler. Jennifer, was there a question in the chat that I saw pop up?
Yes, and I love this question. Stan and Karen had asked about what about developing an unfinished basement?
It's a great question, actually. If you have, again, it comes down to functionality. So if you have a bungalow and you have an unfinished basement, that's a lot of square footage of living space. Maybe the people who own it, whether it's yourselves or the people before who owned it, they just didn't need it, so they didn't develop it. But when it comes to functionality, people want more than one living space. So if you have just a couple and you have a couple people over, you have grandkids come over, you have friends come over, and your basement's unfinished in a bungalow, that creates unfunctional space for the average consumer. If you have, if you have a big family and your basement is unfinished and you have one living room and no bonus room, again, you only have one family room for either younger kids, teenagers, or yourselves to use to watch TV, to entertain. So I usually say if it has a bonus room and a main floor, now you have two spaces where families can coexist. And um, and so, yes, in certain circumstances, I would finish the basement. If you were going to finish the basement and then sell your house, it might be a different answer because finishing a basement, depending on how big it is, it's quite costly right now. So you might, one of my clients finished their basement. It's a 3,400 square foot 2-story. It was unfinished basement, which is a little odd for that big of a home. And in a state home. So they finished it. And he said, well, how much do you think this is going to be? And I said, this is a big home. This is going to be 100 grand. And he was 120. Now he also put extra things in it. If you had a smaller footprint, most contractors, are doing like it'd be around 50. It'll be 50,000. If it's a really small home, it might be a bit less, and then it depends on your finishing and how many rooms you put in. Do you put a bar in? Do you put extra pot lights? Do you and then if it's a really old home, you have to update your electrical panel because it's 1966 and it's a stab lock panel and you can't get any breakers for it. So a little bit of a snowball can happen depending on, and that's why I like to talk to people and actually run through all the numbers, all the scenarios, timing, what the people want, because some people want to do a reno or do a basement and then sell. It will help it sell because it's completely done. Someone can just move in. That's important to people. But the cost of doing it, the time, effort, and energy, and the financial cost of doing it, those 4 things may not completely line up with your goals.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's I think I've read that you don't necessarily get dollar for dollar back on a basement renovation. So if it's personal interest, that's one thing, but for pure resale, might not be the best. Is that where you're kind
Yeah.
of saying, Rod?
Yeah, but it does depend on the functionality. So if the house on its own without the finished basement, even if someone doesn't need to do it, if they say, well, I've never used it, like we just don't need it. Okay. I sold a bungalow in Rocky Ridge in the Northwest recently, and it was a unfinished basement, 1,500 square feet, and 1 living room and 2 bedrooms up, and everyone who showed it said, like, I would finish the basement. Like we need more than just one space. So it really depends on the house, and it depends on your personal timeline on what you want to do. Because the answer, it could be different. It'll be different. If you're going to stay in the house for 15 years and you have family now moving to town, you've got another person living, they're going to live in the like 100%. Then it makes sense, and you don't have to go high end on everything. So you can keep it, pretty tailored to what your needs are, but not break the bank. And if you're into it for 15 years, well, then you're going to get a ton of enjoyment, and you will see some of that. But if you do it just to sell, unless it is making your house super functional, it's a risk. It's a gamble. But so I guess my comment would be, it so depends. It just totally depends on your situation and what the house is like. Because if you have an 8x8 living room on the main floor and that is your only living space, then it might really be worthwhile, because majority of people want more space than that.
Great answer. I think we have time for one more question. And Jennifer, I think I saw one more in the chat there.
Yep, there's one more in the chat. It just Jeff is asking, is it advisable to leave some furniture, appliances, etc., to enhance the sale? And just to clarify, Jeff, do you mean like included as part of the sale, or do you mean like to like how it shows?
I would say not so much as it shows, but as part of the sale.
Okay, great question.
Yeah, it is a question I get on a regular basis. Again, it does depend on what it is. Uh, if you have a house I just sold in Thorncliffe 3 weeks ago, it was an estate sale. Unfortunately, both the parents had passed away. So the kids were dealing with the estate. They had 8 foot 1930 freezer that would fit a horse in the basement. I don't think it actually could get out of the basement. And they had tons of furniture. In that situation, I included all of it.
Yeah.
I told my clients, I was like, include everything because unless you want it, include it all. When it comes to not that situation, but regular furniture, if it's in decent shape, sometimes people will buy stuff as included, and I often have people. It depends on the price range of the house as well, but I do have often where someone will say, you know what, they can buy all the furniture too. The only downfall to that I find is I always tell my clients, don't put it as part of the sale. Keep it separate. Sell the house.
Oh, okay.
Get the price. Get your possession. Don't negotiate on furniture because I guarantee you it has happened so many times to me. And they say, well, we're going to we'll give you $1 million for the house. And you say, well, and all the furniture. Well, but the furniture is like 100 grand for all the furniture. Yeah, but we're gonna only give you this much for it because I mean that couch didn't look like it was worth that much, and that table's not. And sometimes the seller's like, well, that's an heirloom. That's a $10,000 couch, and one of my clients had a $60,000 chandelier. Well, like all of a sudden, you're now negotiating on stuff, and the house itself is now secondary. So I always tell people, if you want to sell stuff, give me a list. We're going to do a list. It's going to be outside of this deal. They're going to pay you cash for it outside the deal. Because if you include it with your house, it gets absorbed in the price, and you literally will just give it away. And if what you want to do, if you just really don't want it, then it can work, but you won't get as much leverage on
separately.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much, Rod. That was great. So again, Rod, really appreciate taking some time here to answer some questions, go through a couple of different scenarios. I think the biggest thing that I've taken away is that everything's not black and white. It's not yes or no. It's there's a lot of gray. And just like with people working with Tyler, Jennifer, and myself, talking to a trusted advisor like yourself when it comes to, arguably one of the biggest purchases or sales in their life, can really avoid a lot of pitfalls and challenges. So you've definitely given us a lot of good things to think about, and thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
My pleasure as well. So it's on behalf of myself and the team, just want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. As we mentioned earlier, we will be recording this session and sending it out to you as a replay link probably later this week, early next week. So as always, we're here for you. If you've got some questions, if there's anything you want to talk about, by all means, let us know. And if you'd like to reach out to Rod, let me know as well, and I'd be happy to connect the two of you. So once again, just want to thank everybody for taking the time to spend with us this evening, and hopefully you got some value. So have a great evening, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.